In NASCAR's 75-year history, there have been many numbers come and go. On any given weekend, you will see 36 to 40 unique numbers on the track, and each of those numbers has a story to tell. Hi, I'm your host Matt, and this is NASCAR Number History, presented by Dogleg Media. In this series, we look to tell the stories of each of those numbers, who won with the number first, who found victory lane the most, and every other driver to grab a trophy in the number. We go in numerical order, and today we explore every number in the 50s. If you miss numbers 1 through 49, the Number History playlist will be linked below. But with that out of the way, let's dive into some more NASCAR number history. And we're starting this one off with a winless number. Yep, get ready, because there's a couple of these to come. The number 50 has 326 total starts, and hey, it's had 11 top 5s, so that's something, right? The first to drive the 50 would be Gober Sosby in NASCAR's second ever Cup race in 1949 at Daytona Beach. Gober would start on the pole in this race, but would ultimately finish 8th. Gober will be mentioned shortly for a number that he got both of his Cup Series victories in. And then we move on to honorable mentions, and Tan Dog suggested Derek Cope, who drove for Don Arnold to start the 2004 season. I didn't know about this story, but they would ultimately fire Cope after a third of the season, leading to the downfall of the team. Thanks for the suggestion. And then Titan Iron Wolf suggested a silly honorable mention after last week's Cole Trickle mention. They suggested John Smith, who was the AI playable character in the NASCAR Racing 2 video game. While I don't understand the meme of it, I'm certain there will be viewers who will, so thanks for the mention. And then we move to the current driver, and there isn't currently an active full-time driver of the 50. Want to know something crazy? There's never been a driver to pilot the 50 for every single race in the same season. The last time the number saw the track was in 2023, with IndyCar driver Connor Daly at COTA for the Money Team Racing. The 50 has been ran sparingly with Floyd Mayweather's Cup team since 2022. This definitely surprised me that the number has never had a dedicated driver for an entire season. When do you think that will change? And then we move on to the 51. And hey, we have a number with a win. This feels good, except there's only ever been one winner. The 51 has competed in 730 races and counting, with a 0.3 win percentage. And for the only winner, well, we mentioned him for the 50, and the number that Gober Sosby would grab both of his Cup wins in would be the 51. Gober would get the number's first win in 1952 at Augusta, and the number's last win in 1954 at Macon. So yeah, the number currently has a 69-year winless drought, but at least it's been to victory lane. And for honorable mentions, Jay suggested the Kurt Busch Talladega Nights paint scheme that he ran in the 51. I remember this scheme, and I also remember the roar of the crowd when it would lead the field during the race. And then of course my personal honorable mention is Rowdy Burns. I can't mention Cole Trickle for the 46 without mentioning his rival Rowdy Burns, who drove the 51 in the hit film Days of Thunder. And then we get to the current driver. Well, I messed this one up whenever I said this driver drove the 15 in an earlier installment, but Cody Ware was the full-time driver of the 51 until he would have legal trouble regarding a domestic dispute. He would be indefinitely suspended by NASCAR on April the 10th. And this is a sad situation, as Ware had talked about his mental struggles, something I personally think isn't taken seriously enough. Regardless of the issues though, what he was charged with isn't excused by mental health. I certainly hope Cody gets the help he needs. The current drivers are a mixed bag. JJ Yaley was the last to pilot it, but it's also seen the return of Ryan Newman as well. What will Rick Ware Racing do with the 51? Will they continue with the rotation of different drivers? Or will they find a dedicated driver moving forward? And then we move on to the 52. The 52 has 2 total wins with 2 different drivers. It's competed in 747 races with a 0.26 win percentage. The first to win in the 52 would be Neil Cole. Cole would go to victory lane in 1951 at Thompson. Neil would only make 19 total Cup Series starts, with 5 of those coming in the 52. The win at Thompson would be the only victory of his career as well. And then the last time the 52 would go to victory lane would be in 1974, with Earl Ross winning at Martinsville in the number. Ross would win the 1974 Rookie of the Year award in the number as well, driving for Junior Johnson and Associates. This would be Ross's only win in his 26-race career. And a fun fact for all of our Canadian viewers, Earl Ross is the only Canadian driver to ever win in the Cup Series, so celebrate this one. And we didn't receive any honorable mentions for the 52 car, which isn't super surprising. And then on to the current driver. Yet another number without a current full-time driver. The last time the number was on track was with the last full-time driver, Josh Bilicki. Balicki would drive the 52 for Rick Ware Racing during the 2021 season, and the last race for the number being the season finale at Phoenix. The number hasn't been to victory lane in almost half a century, and don't look for that to change anytime soon without a dedicated full-time driver. Moving right along to the 53, and this one barely escaped winless status, and we'll talk about the driver who claimed its only win. But first, let's look at the stats. The 53 has one total win, with of course one driver. It's competed in 297 total races with a 0.33 win percentage. And since we only have one winner, let's talk about some other history for the number. The first to drive the 53 would be George Masker in 1950 at Langhorne. And Langhorne is a track that I can't wait to cover in the upcoming NASCAR track history series, but for now we'll stick to numbers. Masker would enter a field of 48 cars and bring the 53 Kaiser machine home in 33rd. And here we are, the only winner in the 53 cars history, and it came over half a century ago in 1961 at Atlanta. Bob Burdick would be the driver to get the win for the 53. In a field of 46 cars, Burdick's 53 machine would start 7th, leading 44 laps en route to the number's only win. He would only make 15 total starts, 8 of those coming in the 53, and his only career win being the only win for the number. And as far as honorable mentions, we didn't get any for the 53 either. Probably the most significant one I could find would be Richie Petty, who is the nephew of Richard Petty and son of Maurice Petty. Richie would only make 4 starts in the Cup Series, all 4 of those coming in the Petty Brothers Racing 53 Ford. And then on to the current driver, and you guessed it, there isn't currently an active driver of the 53 either. This is another number like the 50 where it's never had a dedicated full-time driver to compete in every single race of a season. Rick Ware Racing would run the number for every race in 2021, but it had a slew of different drivers. The last time the number was on track was with Joey Gase in the 2021 season finale at Phoenix. This is yet just another number in the 50s without a dedicated full-time driver. And with it never having a single driver to call it home, it looks like it's going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. And now we've hit the 54, and this is our only number in the entire video that has a dedicated full-time driver, and realistically the only one in this stretch that I would say is capable of winning races. The 54 has 3 total wins with 2 different drivers. It's competed in 485 races with a 0.6 win percentage. The driver who got the 54's first win is also the winningest driver for the number. Jimmy Pardue would get the number's first win in 1962 at Richmond. Pardue would then get the number's second win in the very next season, winning at Moyock in 1963. Pardue's 2 wins is good enough for him to be the winningest driver in the number, although I would be willing to bet this title won't last for much longer, given the caliber of our current driver. The last driver to take the 54 to victory lane would be Lenny Pond. Pond would get the number's most recent win in 1978 at Talladega. Pond would also win the 1973 Rookie of the Year award driving the number for Rainier Racing. His win at Talladega would be the only win of Pond's career. And then on to honorable mentions, and we actually have one this time. Zachary suggested Garrett Smithley's 54 machine, and honestly after taking a look at it, I really like this paint scheme. The color combination is nice. He would run this scheme in 2019 for Rick Ware Racing. And then on to our current driver. We've made it to our only dedicated full-time driver in this entire video, Ty Gibbs. Gibbs is the grandson of team owner Joe Gibbs. He is also the 2022 Xfinity Series champion. The 54 almost didn't have a dedicated driver, and it came at the expense of another long-time running number, the 18. Gibbs would bring his Xfinity number to Cup, and with the backing of one of NASCAR's premier teams, it is very likely that he will become the number's winningest driver. Although I can't say that I'm a huge fan of Ty Gibbs, I can definitely recognize his talent. He's easily the best rookie of the 2023 season, with Noah Gragson having severe growing pains at underperforming Legacy Motor Club. Look for Ty Gibbs to win races, multiple races. I believe he has a long NASCAR career ahead of him, and it'll be nice to see the now 45-year drought come to an end. Do you see that happening this season? If not, when do you see him getting his first win? And we go from the only number in this stretch with a current full-time driver to the winningest number for this one. That's right, it's the 55. Let's take a look at how it got there. The 55 has 13 total wins, with 6 different drivers. It's competed in 1,112 races, which is also the most starts for any number in the 50s, with a 1.2 win percentage. And much like the 54, the driver who first took the 55 to victory lane would also be the winningest. This time it's a Hall of Famer and true pioneer of our sport, Junior Johnson. Johnson would get the first win for the number in 1955 at Hickory. He would win 5 total times in the 55, all coming in 1955 for B&L Motors. That's a lot of 5s. Johnson would win 50 times in his Hall of Fame career, and 10% of those would come in the 55. And then let's move on to other winners. And this is a first for this episode. We have more than one other winner. Let's dive in. Starting off with Tiny Lund. And we've talked about Lund once before for his massive win in the 1963 Daytona 500, driving the Wood Brothers 21. Lund would win 5 total times in his career, and 4 of those 5 would come in the 55 machine. 2 coming for Lyle Stelter, and the other 2 coming for Ronnie Hopkins. And next on our list is yet another Hall of Famer, Benny Parsons. Parsons is a Cup champion and 21-time winner in the Cup Series. He would get the last win of his career in the 55, coming in 1984 at Atlanta. This would be Parsons' only win in the number as well. He would be inducted into NASCAR's Hall of Fame in 2017. And here's a familiar name, or last name at least. Phil Parsons, brother of Benny, would collect 1 win in the 55 machine. This would be the only win of his career, and it would come in 1988 at Talladega, driving for Jackson Bros Motorsports. It's pretty cool that a pair of brothers got a win in the same number. And then we move to Bobby Hamilton. The guy who got his start in the Cup Series qualifying the 51 Days of Thunder movie car is the next winner on our list for the 55. Hamilton would also get the last win of his Cup Series career in the 55, in 2001 at Talladega, driving for Andy Petrie. Hamilton would pilot the 55 for 2 seasons, 2001 and 2002. And that takes us to the last to win in the number. And I gotta say, there must be a Mandela effect with this one, because a lot of viewers and myself included could have swore that Mark Martin won in the 55, but that never happened. The last to win in the number would be Brian Vickers. This would also be the last one of Vickers' career, so maybe winning in the 55 isn't a great sign after all. Vickers would wheel the 55 to victory lane at New Hampshire in 2013 for Michael Waltrip Racing. This win by Vickers would be the most recent win for any number in the 50s. That's pretty crazy. And then on to honorable mentions. We had a few honorable mentions for this one, and for copyright reasons, I can't play the Michael Waltrip commercials, although a few of you guys suggested that one. Nathan mentioned Brett Moffitt, and he makes a great point. He would make a handful of starts in the 55 in 2015, and even had a few great runs in it. He never really got top-notch equipment, but shined in the feeder series, where he would win the 2018 Craftsman Truck Series Championship. He now drives in the Xfinity Series full-time, but it's still a great mention for sure. And then Kendall suggested the 2009 Napa machine, and man, it's nice to look at for sure. Thanks for all the suggestions, guys. And then we get to our current driver, and here we are again. I'm making quite a few tombstones for this one. The last time the 55 was on track was in 2022 with JJ Yaley at Talladega, driving for MBM Motorsports. This is a number that I would oddly like to see come back. There's just something about it. Let me know your thoughts. And then we move on to the 56. The 56 has 2 total wins with 2 different drivers. It's competed in 290 races with a 0.7 win percentage. The first to win in the 56 would be Jim Hurtubise. He would win in 1966 at Atlanta. In a field of 44 cars, he would lead 139 laps on his way to the number's first win. Jim only scored 1 Cup Series victory, but he was also a winner in IndyCar, where he would score 4 total wins. It's always cool to me when a driver can win in multiple different forms of racing. And the number's last win is actually fairly recent, winning in the same year that Brian Vickers took the 55 to victory lane in 2013. It would come 3 races before Vickers' win, at Sonoma with his teammate Martin Truex Jr. Truex is also the only dedicated full-time driver the number has ever had, making nearly half of the starts for the number with 144 of the total 290 starts. He would pilot the 56 for Michael Waltrip Racing from 2010 to 2013, with a best points finish of 11th in 2012. Truex was also a part of the famous Spin Gate at Richmond in 2013, where his teammate Clint Boyer would wreck himself on purpose to get his teammate Truex into the playoffs. Spingate deserves its own video, and a fellow Daily Downforce content creator, The Iceberg, made a video on it. After this one, go check it out. It'll be linked below. And there are no honorable mentions for this one, and honestly, aside from Martin Truex, there's not a whole lot to note for this one. So I'm going to skip it and let you, the viewers, tell me who I missed. And then on to the current driver. Another number, another tombstone. This one hasn't even seen the track since Martin Truex in 2013. It's a forgotten relic, and honestly, I thought it looked pretty good. I hope to see it make a return sometime soon. And then we move on to the 57, our second winless number, and we don't even have any honorable mentions for this one. So it's going to be a quick one. Let's dive in. The 57 has competed in 298 total races. The first time the number saw the track would be in 1951 at Daytona Beach. Felix Wilkes would be behind the wheel for that one. In a field of 55 cars, Wilkes would start 23rd. but he would retire early with complications, finishing 51st. I couldn't find a single thing for Felix on here. He would only make 7 starts in his career, so I apologize for not having a photo or anything. Since we don't have any honorable mentions for this one, and honestly that doesn't surprise me, let's at least talk about some notable drivers of the 57. First up is Jimmy Spencer. Spencer would complete his rookie season in 1990 with Australian Racing in the 57. He would complete all but the last 3 races of the season that year with a best finish of 8th. And then there's Tommy Moon. Moon would be the first to get a pole position in the number, where he would also get the number's best finish in the same race, finishing 2nd at Augusta in 1952 after starting from the pole. And then we get to the current driver, and I'm getting pretty good at making these tombstones. The 57 hasn't seen the track in a long time, with the last race for the number coming in 2003 with Kevin LePage behind the wheel at Michigan. There's not a lot to say about this one. Will we ever see it win? Will we ever see it make a return? Moving right along to the 58. And the 58 has the 4th fewest starts of any number in NASCAR history, and it is certainly the fewest starts of any number in the 50s, and yet it still managed to get a win. The 58 has 1 win with 1 driver. It's competed in 134 total races with a 0.7 win percentage. The number first saw the track in 1950 at Vernon. Harlan Holmes would be the driver. Holmes is yet another driver I couldn't find any picture or anything on. He only made 3 total starts, all 3 coming in 1950 and all 3 coming in the 58. Our only winner in the 58 to date is Johnny Allen. Allen would score the number's only win in 1962 at Bowman Gray Stadium. An interesting fact about Allen, he is actually the driver to win the very first ever race at Bristol. However, he wouldn't be credited with the win. He would sub in for Jack Smith, who would be credited with the win since he started the race. This would happen in the 46 car, mentioned last episode. And there's no surprise here, there are no honorable mentions for this one. I will let the viewers tell me anyone I may have missed here, so don't be shy. And on to the current driver. Are y'all tired of tombstones? Well, here's another one. If you thought the 57 hadn't been ran in a while, the 58 has had an even longer absence. The last time the 58 was on track was in 1999 with Hutch Strickland. With the number not being ran since the 20th century, when do you think we're going to see it back, and do you think we'll ever see another win in it? And now we move on to the 59. The 59 has 3 total wins with 2 different drivers. It's competed in 239 races with a 1.25 win percentage. Let's finish this thing off. This has been a crazy week of research, and honestly I'm shocked the 59 has 3 wins. Let's dive into who won and some other notable guys. The first to drive the 59 would be Bill Rexford in NASCAR's first season, making its debut at Langhorne in 1949. Rexford is a NASCAR champion and is still the youngest to ever win the Cup Championship, winning it at the age of 23. A crazy fact about Rexford, he only ran 36 total races in his career and only has 1 win in his time, in a number that is still to be discussed. Who can tell me what number that is? And the first trip to victory lane for the 59 would be courtesy of Lloyd Moore. Moore would take his only trip to victory lane in 1950 at Winchester. Moore was the teammate of Bill Rexford that season, where Bill would go on to win that season's championship. The driver to last win in the number is also the driver with the most wins, Tom Pistone. Pistone would win 2 times in the number, with the last for the number coming in 1959 at Richmond. These 2 wins would be the only wins for Pistone in his 130 race career. And again, no honorable mentions, so y'all know the drill. Let me know who I missed. And then on to the current driver. And this is the last tombstone for this episode, thank goodness. But we're going to see plenty of them next episode, so I hope you like them. The last to drive the 59 would be Michael McDowell for Levine Family Racing in 2016. He would make 2 starts in the number, the Daytona 500 to start the season, and Homestead to finish that season. And that'll do it for the 50s, another marathon episode, and it was honestly cool to look at some of NASCAR's least used numbers. As always, I'm prone to forgetting drivers. Let me know which drivers of any of these numbers I may have missed for this one. If you haven't seen numbers 1 through 49, the number history playlist will be linked below. Be sure to check them out. We will be back next week with yet another 10 number episode, this time focusing on every number in the 60s. That one has the most winless numbers of any 10 number stretch, with there only being 5 total wins from 60 to 69. If you liked the video, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. It helps a ton and I definitely appreciate it. We hit our 1,000 subscriber goal and I couldn't have done it without you guys. The next milestone is lofty, but let's get to 10K next. I know that we can do it. You guys are incredible. Be sure to check the community tab of the channel. We do cool little giveaways like autographed merchandise and diecast, as well as updates and polls for the channel. You definitely don't want to miss it. We also have a Discord server. Check the About tab for that as well if you want to join us over there. But that'll do it for us here at Dogleg Media. I'm Matt, your host, and you've been watching NASCAR Number History. I'll see you next time.